Welcome back to the channel, USA Coins 69 or Grandparent, and you spot a small copper coin with the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. It looks old, it feels different, and then you notice the date, 1944. At first glance, it's just another wheat penny, the kind you've probably seen before, but in reality, it could be one of the most valuable treasures hiding right under your nose. Today, we're diving deep into the story of the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny from 1944 with its mint mark, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors around the world. By the end of this video, you'll discover why this little coin, worth just 1 cent when it was made, can now command an absolutely jaw-dropping price. Let's take a journey back to the year 1944. America was in the midst of World War II, a time when the country's entire economy and way of life revolved around the war effort. Soldiers were overseas fighting in Europe and the Pacific, while those back home were contributing in every way possible, working in factories, rationing supplies, and recycling metals to aid the cause. Even coins were affected by these changes. Just the year before, in 1943, the U.S. Mint made pennies out of steel coated with zinc instead of copper, because copper was so desperately needed for ammunition and war supplies. Those steel pennies looked silvery, almost like dimes, and people found them confusing. By 1944, however, copper was brought back for the penny, but there's a twist. Many of the 1944 pennies were actually struck using recycled brass from spent shell casings collected after military training. That means every 1944 wheat penny carries with it not just the story of America's currency, but the story of the war itself. When you hold one of these coins, you're literally holding a piece of history that once might have been part of the very materials used to defend freedom. The design of the coin is classic and powerful. On the front, we see Abraham Lincoln's bust, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909. His steady profile represents strength and leadership during some of the nation's hardest times. The inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 1944 frame his portrait, with the all-important mint mark just below the year. That little letter tells us where the coin was made, whether in Philadelphia with no mark, Denver with a D, or San Francisco with an S. Some mint marks are scarcer than others, and that difference can mean the world when it comes to value. Turn the coin over, and the beauty continues. On the reverse are the famous wheat stalks, curving gracefully along the edges. Between them stand the bold words, 1 cent, and United States of America, while at the top reads, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. This wheat design connected the coin to the everyday working people of America, especially farmers who were the backbone of the country. It's a design that collectors cherish, not only for its simplicity but also for the nostalgia it carries. Now, here's where things get really exciting. Even though millions of 1944 wheat pennies were minted, not all of them are equal. Most circulated heavily, buying groceries, paying bus fares, and being passed down from hand to hand during a period of hardship and recovery. Those coins are common today and may only be worth a small premium. But coins that survived untouched, stored away with their original copper-red luster, are rare and valuable. Collectors look for coins in uncirculated or mint state condition where Lincoln's cheek, jawline, and the wheat stalk still show sharp detail. The brighter and cleaner the coin, the higher its grade, and the more valuable it becomes. Then there are the fascinating minting errors and varieties. Some 1944 wheat pennies were mistakenly struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. These rare steel 1944 pennies are legendary among collectors and can sell for astronomical amounts because so few exist. Other varieties include repunched mint marks, double dies, or striking anomalies that make the coin unique. Each of these oddities adds to the coin story and drives its value even higher. Imagine, for a moment, someone in 1944 pocketing this penny after buying a loaf of bread for just a few cents, never realizing that decades later, the same coin could be worth more than an entire house. It's incredible to think about how something so small and ordinary can turn into a treasure simply because it survived in the right condition or carries the right mint mark. That's the thrill of coin collecting, finding history, beauty, and value all wrapped into one tiny disc of metal. So, after everything we've uncovered, the wartime history, the return of copper, the mint marks, the varieties, and the condition, the big question remains: what is the value of a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark in the finest condition? The answer will blow your mind. A single 1944 wheat penny, if found in pristine, uncirculated condition with the right mint mark or variety, has sold for as much as $91,000, yes, you heard me correctly, $91,000 for a 1-cent coin. That's the kind of discovery that makes coin hunting so exciting. The change in your pocket or the coin sitting in an old jar at home might be far more valuable than you ever imagined. Today we are going to dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, a coin that has surprised collectors time and time again, not only with its beauty and symbolism but also with the incredible sums it can fetch when preserved in the right condition. By the end of this journey, you'll learn just how much this tiny piece of copper can be worth, and trust me, the number will leave you amazed. Let's take a step back to the late 1950s, when America was living through a unique period in its history. The war years were behind, the economy was booming, and optimism was everywhere. Cars lined the driveways of new suburban homes, rock and roll-filled jukeboxes, and the penny still had a lot of buying power. With just a handful of pennies in your pocket, you could treat yourself to candy at the corner store, contribute toward a soda, or even help fill up the gas tank when prices were just a few cents per gallon. The 1957 penny wasn't just spare change, it was part of daily life, touched by millions of people across the country. The design of this coin is as timeless as it is meaningful. On the obverse, or front, stands Abraham Lincoln, captured in a dignified profile by Victor David Brenner. His portrait, first introduced in 1909, still remains on the cent today, making it one of the most enduring coin designs in American history. Surrounding Lincoln are the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, the word "Liberty" to his left, and the date 1957 to his right, with the tiny but crucial mint mark below. That small letter tells a big story. A D mint mark indicates the coin was struck in Denver, while a coin with no mint mark comes from Philadelphia. For collectors, this tiny detail can mean the difference between an ordinary penny and an extraordinary one. Turn the coin over, and you see the final years of the beloved wheat reverse. 2 stalks of wheat frame the words, 1 cent and United States of America, with De Pluribus Unum above. This design is simple, but it's also deeply connected to American heritage, symbolizing growth, prosperity, and the hard work of farmers who helped build the nation. By 1959, the design would change to the Lincoln Memorial, which makes the 1957 wheat penny one of the last representatives of this nostalgic and much-loved era. Now, the question everyone always asks is this: if millions of these coins were minted, why would any of them be valuable? The truth is, while the U.S. Mint struck a large number of 1957 wheat pennies, most of them entered circulation immediately and were used in everyday transactions until they wore down. The majority today are discolored, scratched, or heavily worn. Collectors aren't looking for those, they are searching for the few coins that survived in pristine, untouched condition. A bright, red-colored copper coin with sharp detail and no signs of wear can be worth dramatically more than its well-worn cousins. Grading is everything in the coin world. A 1957 penny in circulated condition may only be worth its face value, but one graded as mint state, with vibrant luster and no blemishes, can catch the attention of serious collectors. Imagine a coin struck in Denver, tucked away in a bank roll, never spent, never touched, and now revealed decades later in near-perfect condition. That's the kind of coin that sparks excitement and bidding wars. Then there are the rarer cases that make this penny even more special. Some 1957 pennies were struck with minting errors, double dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, and other mistakes. Far from reducing their value, these errors make the coins unique and highly collectible. Error coins tell a story of the minting process itself, showing how human and machine error combine to create something rare and fascinating. For collectors, finding a 1957 penny with such a flaw is like discovering a one-of-a-kind treasure. Think about how many hands a coin like this might have passed through. Maybe it was given as change at a diner where a hamburger cost only 15 cents. Maybe it ended up in the pocket of a child heading to the movie theater, excited to buy a ticket and a bag of popcorn. Or maybe it was slipped into a coin album by someone who had a feeling it was worth saving. Every penny carries a story, but only a few carry extraordinary value, and now we come to the most exciting part, the value reveal. After all the history, the design, the rarity, and the fascination, what can a 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark in the right condition be worth? The answer is astonishing. This small copper coin, preserved and uncirculated, near perfect quality, has been known to sell for as much as $72,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $72,000 for a coin that started life as just 1 cent. That's the magic of numismatics, everyday objects transformed into priceless treasures when time, rarity, and condition all align. Today, we're going to uncover the secrets of the 1953 wheat penny, and by the end, you'll discover just how much one of these little coins can be worth. Let's start by taking ourselves back to the year 1953. America was a country in transition. World War II had ended less than a decade earlier, and the nation was enjoying a post-war boom. Families were buying new homes, cars filled the highways, and television was becoming a centerpiece of American households. A penny still had true buying power back then. You could pick up a piece of candy, contribute to the price of a soda, or start saving toward a movie ticket, which cost just a handful of cents. In those days, pennies weren't just tossed aside or forgotten, they mattered. The Lincoln wheat penny was already a familiar sight by 1953. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure rather than a symbolic image. The design was created by Victor David Brenner, and it became instantly iconic. On the obverse side of the 1953 penny, you see the enduring portrait of Lincoln, steady and noble, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 1953. Just below the date, the mint mark appears, small, but incredibly significant. A D stands for Denver, and an S for San Francisco, while Philadelphia coins of that year carried no mint mark at all. For collectors, the mint mark can make all the difference in determining rarity and value. Turn the coin over, and you're greeted by the classic wheat reverse design, which had been used since 1909. Two wheat stalks gracefully frame the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, while E pluribus unum stretches across the top. The design is simple yet powerful, symbolizing growth, prosperity, and the hardworking American spirit. This was one of the last decades of the wheat penny design, as it would later be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. That fact alone gives wheat pennies from the 1950s a nostalgic charm that makes them especially appealing to collectors. Now, you might ask, if so many 1953 pennies were produced, why would any be valuable? And the answer lies in rarity, condition, and the occasional minting error. While millions were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the majority of these coins were spent, circulated, and worn down in everyday life. Think of the countless times they were exchanged at grocery stores, diners, gas stations, and movie theaters. Over time, the sharp details of Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks wore smooth. Coins like that are common today and are usually only worth face value or slightly more, but some 1953 pennies never entered circulation. Instead, they were tucked away in rolls, saved in albums, or preserved in collections. These coins, untouched and uncirculated, still have their full copper luster and original sharp detail. Collectors prize these examples above all else. A coin in mint state condition, especially one graded with a bright red shine, can command extraordinary prices. Then there's the world of minting errors and varieties, which adds even more excitement. Some 1953 pennies show doubled dies, where parts of the design appear doubled due to misalignment during the striking process. Others may have repunched mint marks, where the little letter below the date was stamped more than once, creating a visible shadow or doubling. Still others may have die cracks, off-center strikes, or clipped planchets. Far from being flaws, these errors make coins unique and highly collectible. For enthusiasts, finding one of these rare error coins is like striking gold. It's also important to remember the historical context of 1953. This was the year Dwight D. Eisenhower was inaugurated as President of the United States. The country was stepping firmly into the Cold War era, and the cultural landscape was changing quickly. Rock and roll was starting to sweep across the nation, and a sense of optimism and progress filled the air. Holding a 1953 penny is like holding a snapshot of that very moment in American history. Now, imagine the thrill of coming across a 1953 wheat penny with a mint mark, preserved in pristine condition, or perhaps even with a rare error. For most people, it would look like nothing more than a copper coin. But for a collector or a keen-eyed treasure hunter, it could mean something life-changing, and here's the part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While many 1953 pennies are worth just a few cents or a couple of dollars depending on their condition, the rarest, best-preserved examples with mint marks can reach unbelievable sums. In fact, a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, when found in the finest condition and graded at the highest levels, has been known to sell for as much as $78,000, yes, $78,000 for a coin that once bought a piece of candy. That's the magic of coin collecting: history, rarity, and condition coming together to transform an ordinary object into something extraordinary. Today we're diving deep into one of the last years of the iconic Lincoln wheat penny, the 1958 Mint Mark edition. These coins may look small, simple, and ordinary at first glance, but as every collector knows, the real story is hidden in the details, and that's where the value is waiting to be discovered. The 1958 Lincoln wheat penny holds a very special place in American numismatic history because it was the final year that the beloved wheat reverse design was struck before the United States Mint transitioned to the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. That means this coin is not only a representation of Abraham Lincoln's legacy on the obverse but also a farewell to an entire era of coinage. People often overlook this fact, tossing 1958 pennies into jars, drawers, or piggy banks without realizing that some of them, because of their mint marks, condition, or rare striking errors, could be worth far more than a single cent. When you look at a 1958 Lincoln wheat penny, the first thing to check is the mint mark, which you'll find just below the date on the obverse. This tiny letter reveals where the coin was made. Coins without a mint mark were struck in Philadelphia, while coins with a small d were produced in Denver. On the surface, both versions seem common, since millions were minted. But the real treasure lies in those coins that survived in pristine, uncirculated condition or in those with fascinating minting errors that collectors absolutely crave. Imagine a coin that's been around since the late 1950s, passing from hand to hand, and yet somehow remains untouched, with all its shine and detail intact. Coins like that are rare gems in today's world, especially considering how easily pennies get scratched, discolored, or worn down in everyday use. The sharper the details, the brighter the luster, and the fewer the blemishes, the higher the grade, and the higher the value. For example, a coin in a mint state condition with a strong strike and vibrant red luster can bring serious attention at auctions, and then, of course, there's the fascinating world of error coins. A simple mistake during the minting process could result in a doubled die, an off-center strike, or even a repunched mint mark. While these mistakes may seem insignificant at the time, collectors now hunt them like hidden treasures. For instance, a 1958 penny with a doubled die obverse, where Lincoln's profile or the inscriptions appear doubled, can command staggering amounts because of its extreme rarity. These coins often surface only once in a blue moon, and when they do, collectors and investors alike are willing to bid aggressively to secure them. Think about this: every coin has a story. The 1958 penny was minted during a time when America was experiencing major cultural shifts, the post-war boom, the rise of rock and roll, and the beginnings of a new decade of change. To own one of these pennies today isn't just about having a piece of copper, it's about holding onto a tangible artifact from that era, a piece of history that has survived over 6 decades. That's why collectors place so much emotional as well as financial value on these coins. Now, the burning question on everyone's mind is, just how much could a 1958 Lincoln wheat penny be worth today? While many examples you'll find in circulation or in old jars might only be worth a few cents, the rarest versions, those in immaculate condition, those with unique errors, or those that stand out for their rarity, can command jaw-dropping sums. In fact, One extraordinary example of the 1958 wheat penny with a special mint mark and exceptional preservation has been valued as high as $82,000. You're digging through a jar of old coins, maybe something you inherited from a relative or simply a collection you've been keeping over the years. As you pour the pennies into your hand, one coin catches your eye. It's darker, older, and has that classic wheat design on the back. You flip it over and notice the date, 1941. At first, it might just seem like an ordinary old penny, but what if I told you that some 1941 Lincoln wheat pennies, depending on their mint mark and condition, can be worth an unbelievable fortune? That's the exciting world of coin collecting, where history and value come together in ways you might never expect. The Lincoln wheat penny, first minted in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, became one of the most beloved coins in American history. By the year 1941, the design had already been in circulation for over 3 decades, and millions of these coins were produced across different U.S. mints. What makes the 1941 wheat penny fascinating, however, is not just its history but the unique variations and conditions that determine its true worth today. Take a close look at the obverse of the coin, the front side, where the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln stands proudly. Just beneath the date, you might see a tiny letter. That's the mint mark, and it's the key to unlocking part of the mystery of the coin's value. A 1941 penny without a mint mark was produced in Philadelphia. If you see a small D, it means the coin was struck in Denver. A tiny S means it came from San Francisco. These small letters, barely noticeable to the untrained eye, can mean the difference between a coin worth only a few cents and one worth thousands of dollars. But why does condition matter so much? Think about how pennies were used in 1941. Back then, people were carrying them in their pockets, using them in pay phones, buying a loaf of bread, or tossing them into coin purses. Over the decades, most of these pennies became worn, scratched, and discolored. Finding a coin from that era that has survived in pristine, mint-state condition is extremely rare. Collectors look for details like sharpness in Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the wheat stalks on the reverse, and whether the coin still has its original red luster. The more untouched the coin, the more desirable it is, and then, of course, there are the fascinating errors. Sometimes, during the minting process, mistakes would happen that went unnoticed at the time but are now treasures for collectors. Imagine a 1941 penny that was struck slightly off-center, or one with a double die error where the letters or Lincoln's portrait look faintly doubled. These small imperfections can turn a common penny into a highly sought-after rarity. Repunched mint marks are another exciting variety, where the mint mark was stamped more than once, creating a unique overlapping effect. Every error tells its own story and gives the coin a unique identity. Now let's take a step back and consider the historical moment. In 1941, America was on the edge of entering World War II. The economy was shifting, resources were being redirected to military production, and life in the United States was changing rapidly. Pennies from this era are more than just small copper coins, they are witnesses to one of the most pivotal years in modern history. Holding a 1941 wheat penny in your hand is like holding a snapshot of America right before it stepped fully into a world at war. So, how much could a 1941 Lincoln wheat penny really be worth? While the vast majority of them might only fetch a modest price, the rarest examples are a different story altogether. Coins with pristine surfaces, strong strikes, brilliant red luster, or unique minting errors have been known to draw huge attention at auctions. Collectors and investors are always searching for that one perfect piece to add to their collection. And in some extraordinary cases, a single 1941 wheat penny with the right mint mark, rare condition, and perfect preservation has reached an incredible value of $89,000. Do you want me to also make you an extra long script for the 1942 wheat penny, since it follows right after and would flow perfectly as a series for your viewers?